Hey, everybody, this is Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. Hope you're all doing well on this fine Thursday evening. I'm not sure if you guys are stuck watching, some of you are stuck watching this game on Thursday Night Football between the Colts and the Broncos, but if you're not and you're tuning in, thank you very much. It's going to be, I figured we'd take about an hour. If you guys want to go through some of your own questions and answers, we can do that. Otherwise, I'll just go through some stuff on my own. Take it kind of as it goes through, depending on how many folks join and what this looks like tonight. We'll give it a go. Couple of things today from 49ers practice. A couple of interesting notes that I picked up on along the offensive line. This is one of the areas the 49ers have had a number of injuries already over the early part of this season. Trent Williams is down. Trent Williams was replaced by Colton McKivitz for the game last week against the Rams, and then McKivitz went down as well. So kind of the question's been, what are the 49ers going to be doing at left tackle? Today, Chris Foerster spoke to the media, and according to he's the run game coordinator. He's the guy that fills in as the offensive coordinator on media days. But according to Chris Foerster, the 49ers are going to start at Jalen Moore at left tackle. Moore stepped in last week in place of McKivitz when he went down in the second half of that game against the Rams. Did an okay job. We didn't see him get blown up like what happened the previous time that he had to go into a game the week prior out in Denver. So he had a much better performance in Denver for sure. And then the other piece of information that we got is, so Jalen Moore will be making the start at left tackle for the 49ers on Sunday. Outside of that, the backup left tackle, there had been a little bit of question as far as who would be the backup. There's been, I had myself on a stream on Tuesday had mentioned that it would probably, might be Daniel Brunskill that would take over at left tackle if Moore struggled. I didn't think that Brunskill would start, but I could see him being the first man off the bench at left tackle. That's not going to be the case. Brunskill's still working his way back, and according to Foerster, they haven't given him any reps out at tackle. It's all been at guard and center. So don't expect to see Brunskill on the outside at all. He's going to be the swing interior offensive lineman. So he's going to be the guy that's going to be, if there's an injury at center or either of the guard spots, he'll be the first man off the bench there. And then out as far as the swing tackles, now with the injuries that we're seeing taking place, Blake Hance has moved into the role of the swing tackle. So Jalen Moore to start. Blake Hance will be backing him up. Daniel Brunskill will be out there as a backup along the interior of the offensive line, but not out at the tackle spots. At least for this week, that's going to be the case. In terms of the injury report today was pretty much the same as what it was yesterday. Not really anything surprising on the injury front for the 49ers right now. They've got Trent Williams, obviously, he's out for this week. Also, Javon Kinlaw did not practice today. Either Tyler Kroft is out as well. Colton, here's the guys that we know that are out: Trent Williams, Javon Kinlaw, Tyler Kroft. We know that those are out for sure. Eric Armstead did not practice today because of the foot injury. Ty Davis-Price didn't practice today. He's still dealing with the ankle. Javon Kinlaw as well was not on the field. And then last but not least was Tarvarius Moore. He was also not a participant in practice today. And then as far as the limited participants, these are the same two as yesterday. Ross Dwelly, who's dealing with a rib injury, and Juwan Jennings, who has an ankle injury that he suffered late in the game on Monday night on a screen play out to the left side. And then Danny Gray returned to practice in full yesterday, which was good news. He had missed all the practices last week and missed the game. He returned to practice yesterday, and he was out there again today. And Nick Bosa was back at practice after missing yesterday with just having a day off. So 49ers are relatively healthy in terms of coming from last week into this one. Obviously, losing McKivitz is a blow. We'll see how more if he can step up. Also, with one piece with Blake Hance that's interesting is he did start quite a bit at tackle for Cleveland in 2021. He made 8 starts, played okay. My normal usual Tuesday partner, Sobriel Sunil, hit me up on Twitter, wanted to know what my scouting report on Blake Hance was, and I mentioned to him that he's made those 8 starts last year for Cleveland, and as really your 4th option, it's a pretty good option. They have, obviously they're going to go, Trent Williams is your first one. You got McKivitz. Now you're on Moore. If you get down to number 4, having Blake Hance be your 4th guy coming off the bench at left tackle, you could do a lot worse than that. So we'll see how it works out. And then let me I do definitely want to get into the whole, one of the big topics of conversation around the 49ers this week since Monday night, and it kind of started during the game on Monday night, was the involvement of George Kittle in the passing game. And I think this has been blown way out of proportion. I'll get into the numbers of it in a minute. Let me go ahead real quick and just answer a couple of questions over on the side. Andrew wants to know if I'm watching the Thursday night football game. No, I'm not. I had a long day. Got back home about an hour ago, had some food, and now I'm here talking to you guys. So I haven't paid attention to that at all. I've been kind of following along with it on Twitter. It's pretty ugly. And then you're asking, how did the 49ers lose to the Broncos? It's easy. The 49ers quarterback couldn't hit the broadside of the barn in that game. And that was a big part of it, along with poor field position because of where they were playing up at the mile, Mile High. Ball travels farther. You get those balls going into the end zone and back, and you're backed up quite a bit. And so they have a long field to go. And the 49ers offense has struggled. At least was struggling in that game for sure, with being able to be consistent, to move the ball down the field. And you put that out there with a quarterback that's missing some throws and an offensive line that's struggling at times and a little bit inconsistent. All those things play into it, and the 49ers lose that game. I felt like week 3 in Denver was very, very similar to week 1 in Chicago. And the offense just was not consistent and would make some plays here and there, but they weren't able to make enough plays to get into the end zone. They just weren't consistent enough to finish off drives. We saw that in the first half in that Chicago game. We saw it in the opening possession of the second half. And that's really a lot of how I felt when I was watching that game on Sunday night against the Broncos. Much better performance from the 49ers on Monday night against the Rams. Let's see what else we got. Jesus wants to know, is the offensive line made to do screens? Yes, this offensive line is very good in the screen game. We saw the 49ers run a lot of screens on Monday night. That kind of plays into the whole George Kittle piece as well, as far as, why was Kittle only targeted 4 times. A lot of that has to do with the screens and the passing game in general as well. But yeah, I think this offensive line is made to do screens. They've got guys who can run, and that's really what you need. And for the most part, they're pretty good out in space. Jesus also wants to know, anybody else that can help Jeff Wilson at running back? Yeah, that one is, I think Jordan Mason needs to get the ball. I said that heading into last week's game. I still believe it. I'm not sure why Jordan Mason is not being utilized at all. You watch him run the ball, and he seems like he really fits the 49ers style of running back. And so his lack of usage, the lack of even giving him a chance, really is interesting to me. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because I think that Jordan Mason deserves, based off what we saw in preseason, that he should be able to play in this league. I would like to see it. The one carry that he's gotten in a regular season game was a 7-yard burst around the left side. I would like to see him get a chance and see if how he can do. Part of it, is the 49ers haven't been able to run the ball very much the last couple of games. Up in Denver, they weren't able to convert on third downs, which hurt them in terms of the number of carries. An interesting thing on that real quick, the Denver game and the lack of carries. If you remember, after the game, Kyle Shanahan was asked about the lack of rushes, and he mentioned how they weren't able to convert on first down. They weren't able to do those, and by not converting on third down, it just limits the number of plays they had and this and that. And had a was looking through some comments made by the Carolina Panthers head coach Matt Rule uh, just recently, and he had the same takeaway from their last game, in that, when you're not converting on third down and you're not running very many plays, it's hard to get your run game going. I agree with him. I don't think that when you're limited, especially in this last game, there's been a lot of talk about the Flyers offense. The Flyers only ran 49 plays on offense, so it wasn't like they were on the field all that much. They only ran 49 plays to 73 for the Rams. So I think that limits it a little bit too. But in terms of your question, Jesus, anybody else that can help Jeff Wilson at running back? It's Jordan Mason. That's the guy. Debuda, how you doing, Debuda? He says, "Hey Jack, if you were Kyle, would you make a move before the trade deadline?" It depends on what it is. It depends on who you're asking me if they want to trade for. I feel like this is a team that's really solid. I don't know where depends on where you're thinking you want to add somebody. Quarterback isn't going to get better in the season. Running back maybe. Wide receivers, I think they're pretty well set there unless they have an injury to one of their top three. I think the offensive line is showing its depth. It's going to be better once Trent Williams comes back in a couple of weeks. I think they're hoping to get Williams back for that Kansas City game, which is I believe that's why they haven't put him on IR. Looking through it, they're pretty solid along the defensive line, unless if Javon Kinlaw is going to be out. My Hammer and Nails co-host Jesse Naylor brought up a name the other day on our show that Ndamukong Suh. I'm butchering his name right now. Ndamukong Suh. He would be a good one for the middle of the defensive line if you're able to get him out of. That's not even a trade. That's just a signing. In terms of a trade, I don't know if there's really a need to trade for anybody that you'd pick up. They're pretty good in the secondary. They're really good at linebacker level. Maybe the middle of the interior of the defensive line would be the only spot. Debuta, as far as what was wrong with Danny Gray, he had a hip injury that kept him out of practice last week, and he missed the game on Monday night as a result of it, but he's working his way back, and he's doing better from it now. Niners Warriors. Hey, Jack, have you watched the All-22 yet for the Rams? If so, how do you feel the D-line has been doing against the run? It feels like our linebackers are making the majority of the tackles. Hey, Niners Warriors, yes, I did. I didn't do the All-22 of that game for the defense, but the All-22 of that game is up on my channel for the offensive side. It's under every 49ers offensive play against the Rams, film breakdown. So that's there. In terms of the defense and the linebackers making the majority of the tackles, I think that's partly the way that this defense is, and most defenses are built, is that the defensive linemen, their job is to set the line of scrimmage in terms of don't get pushed back, take up offensive linemen, make them by doing your job on defense, you're basically eating up offensive linemen so that they can't get to the linebackers, so that your linebackers can scrape and make the plays. And that's where, Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner, they've got to be able to fire and make those tackles. A lot of that comes from the defensive line not getting pushed back. And like I said, eating up those blockers to let those linebackers and safeties and sometimes even cornerbacks, depending on the way they're aligned, fit in the run game. And I think that's what you're seeing the Flyers do. And I think they're playing really well. I think the defensive line's playing really well against the run. They're doing a really good job against the pass. And the linebackers right now are doing a really good job of fitting with that run game. Same thing with the safeties when they're down in the box. And we've even seen the corners do it at times. Danny wants to ask, do you see Mitchell getting more carries than Wilson when he returns? Yeah, once Elijah Mitchell gets back, and if he's fully healthy, once he is fully healthy, he will take the lion's share of those carries. There might be a little bit of a by committee with Jeff Wilson Jr., but the majority of those carries will go to Elijah Mitchell. They've shown you that he's the workhorse in the past, and I think that would still be the case. He would have been that way in week one if he didn't get dinged up. So yes, once Elijah Mitchell comes back, I would expect him to get more carries than Jeff Wilson. Yeah, in terms of seeing Mac run, see what he can do. I go back. It would be nice to see him get a chance, but I'm looking more for Jordan Mason. I want to see what Jordan Mason can do more than Mac. Jordan Mason's the guy that has the potential to be here for a long term if he's doing well. So we'll have to wait and see how that works out. I know that we saw Tevin Coleman on the field, or at least I saw him on the All-22. For a few plays. I don't know how many snaps he got in the game, but I know he was out there at least for a couple. Didn't touch the ball in the run game, but he was on the field for a couple of the pass blocking reps. And I think that might be what's keeping Jordan Mason on the sidelines. Arkin Jedi says, how are they going to help Jalen Moore? Quick passes, screens, running the ball. I don't expect Garoppolo is going to have loads of time. I would agree with you. I think what we'll see is if Moore struggles, we'll see them do what they did against Denver, which is keeping either Kyle Juszczyk or George Kittle to help in pass protection. George Kittle got a fair number of reps in pass protection against the Rams on Monday night. I think this might be a good spot to go ahead and stop for just a second and talk a little bit about this whole thing when it comes to George Kittle. George Kittle only was targeted 4 times on Monday night. Why was that the case? Well, the reason was primarily he was blocking. He was on the field for 27 of the 28 dropbacks that Jimmy Garoppolo had on Monday night against the Rams. Okay. So of those 27 plays that he was on the field, I'm talking about the pass plays now, 10 of those he was either blocking pass blocking as like a tackle on either the left or right side, as basically the end man on the scrimmage, or it was a screen in which he was either going out as a lineman with the lineman to lead block for the receiver, or there were a couple of times where he's pass blocking and then kind of releases, but he's never even an option in the play. He's pass blocking off to the side to help make sure that the backside is contained before sliding back. So that has a lot to do with the lack of targets that went George Kittle's way. Now, so that means there were 17 passing plays in which George Kittle was on the field in which he was running a route. So of those 17 plays that George Kittle was on the field running a route, one of them was a scramble by Jimmy Garoppolo. So that at least was the 16 passing plays that George Kittle was on the field on Monday night in which the pass was actually thrown. George Kittle was targeted of those 16 plays, George Kittle was targeted 4 times. He caught 2 of them, but he was targeted 4 times. That is the most of any 49er on those 16 plays that George Kittle ran a route where he could have been a potential receiver. George Kittle was targeted more than any other member of the 49ers. 4. The next closest was 2 guys. Deebo Samuel had 3. One of those was a touchdown. And Juwan Jennings, he was targeted 3 times, caught 2 of them. Those were for first downs. And then there was a throwaway at the end of the first half. I think he was on the field for that one. And then he had his 4 targets that came his way. So again, George Kittle was on the field for 16 pass attempts. He was on the field for 16 of the plays in which Garoppolo went back to pass, and it wasn't a screen or him sitting in, 17 times he ran a route. 16 of those, the ball was actually passed. On those 16, he was targeted 4 times. When he actually ran a route, he was targeted more than any other member of the 49ers, period. So, and how do I know that? I don't know that because I don't know that from looking up the stats on PFF, because they're not correct. The stats on PFF are based only on their pass protection. And there are times, like I said, where even if just by watching the film, you can easily see that he's not running a route. Even if it's something where he's blocking and then kind of sliding off, he's not really running a route because it's a screen in the opposite side. So you've got to watch the film and you have to know what you're looking at. And I'll just say again, 4 out of 16 times more than anybody else. And this has been a huge talking point around the 49ers this week is the lack of targets for George Kittle. So again, George Kittle was on the field for 27 of the 28 drawbacks for Jimmy Garoppolo. 10 of those 27, he was blocking or helping out on a screen block. His primary responsibility was as a blocker. 17 times he ran a route. Once was a scramble, so the ball was only thrown 16 times on his 17 routes. Of those 16 plays, George Kittle led the 49ers in receptions, or targets, at 4. He only had 2 targets. So those are the numbers. Just want to make sure that I put that out for you. That was just going through, I took the time yesterday to actually look through the film. I didn't really think it was a big deal during the game. I know I saw people talking about it on Twitter and stuff, and I never felt like it was a big part of the game. The offense was moving the ball okay. The times when the offense was struggling, I didn't feel like it was because George Kittle wasn't being targeted. So it was just it's kind of interesting how some of these narratives and how some of these points of discussion come about, and we'll leave it at that. 187 says, I live in Charlotte. They stink. Well, they do offensively. Offensively, the Carolina Panthers are not good. And that's a shame because on their defense is pretty good. Their defense is one of the better defenses in the league. They're 12th in the league in net yards per attempt allowed. I believe it's 12th. Might be 9th. 9th it was. Because I think they were 12th in yards per rush attempt allowed. So they're a pretty good defense. The problem in Carolina is that the Panthers don't have anything on offense. And as you also point out here, just stop Baker. Well, Baker is bad, as Andrew says. Baker Mayfield is bad. We'll see how this game plays out. I can see this being a close game just from the standpoint of the 49ers defense is going to shut down Carolina, I think. And I think that the problem here is the 49ers offense is going up against a pretty darn good defense, and we haven't seen them really do well against what looked to be good defenses. So I do think that the Denver Broncos defense is a pretty good unit. Danny comes back. He says, I see the D has no weak points. Getting Verrett and Ward back is adding legit players. What's the Niners' number one weakness going into week 5? The 49ers' number one weakness going into week 5 is quarterback. Quarterback is why they are sitting at 2-2. They should have won in Chicago. They had the fumble by Debo on the first possession, but then you have the second possession. The quarterback misses a wide open receiver for a touchdown. Opening possession of the second half, he doesn't pull the trigger on a wide open Juwan Jennings in the left corner of the end zone for a touchdown, takes a sack instead. Against Denver, the quarterback lets him down, has a touchdown to Deebo Samuel and tackles him with a bad pass. It's behind him that forces him to twist and turn. Misses Juwan Jennings on the opening play of the fourth quarter, which could have been a nice gain that would have helped him put some points on the board. Stepped out of the back of the end zone, threw a pick six on the same play. It was a bad play call, but still. And then you also have the interception when the 49ers are in position to put some points on the board. They're getting close to getting some points on the board. So I look at this team, and I think their biggest weakness right now for the 49ers is the quarterback position. It's been that way. Everywhere else is pretty solid. I know a lot of people have pointed the offensive line, but this offensive line has been playing really well. This offensive line has played about what I expected them to play. I thought they were going to be good. I thought that we were going to see Aaron Banks step up and be much better. There was a lot of negativity around Aaron Banks last year, justifiably so in the fact that he didn't play as a second-round draft pick. But when you look at it and you're logical about it, you realize that he hurt his shoulder in week 1 of the preseason. You realize that he is switching from playing on the left side throughout his collegiate career to the right side, which is never easy. And then missing 4 to 5 weeks, I guess it was, about 4 weeks of practice during training camp while you're making that transition doesn't bode well for you beating out a veteran like Daniel Brunskill. Even if Brunskill isn't one of the top guards in the NFL, it's still going to be hard to beat him out when you've been injured and not being able to get the reps and you're changing from one side to the other. That's not easy. Not everybody can do it. We saw the first round draft pick of the Detroit Lions last year struggle with that as well. He was one of the first linemen taken in the draft, and they were trying to switch him from one side to the other, and he struggled during training camp before finally getting put back on the left side week 1, where he played better. So I'm not surprised by what we've seen out of Aaron Banks so far. If there's a surprise along the offensive line, it's really more at right guard with Spencer Burford, just because he wasn't somebody that was on anybody's radar. I thought it would be Daniel Brunskill over there. It was going to be Brunskill or at center was either going to be Brunskill or Jake Brendel. I was a little surprised that we've seen Brunskill working in so much of the reps at center and not just keeping him over at right guard. It would just made sense to keep him at right guard, but it all worked out for the 49ers, and that Brunskill got hurt. Burford didn't work in there all offseason anyway, and he was able to step right in. So, when I look at this team, I think the weakness is the quarterback spot. When you look at Jason Verrett and Jimmy Ward, I put this up on at 49ers.pressdemocrat.com yesterday. That was the article I wrote yesterday. I think you're gonna see Jimmy Ward get on the field a lot sooner than Jason Verrett. The 49ers can integrate Ward back into this rotation rather seamlessly. And we've seen them run 3 safety looks in the past. In 2019, when they went to the Super Bowl, they ran a lot of looks with like a big dime formation where they had Tarvarius Moore would be the back end single high safety, and they would play Jaquowski Tart and Jimmy Ward down closer to the box. And Jimmy Ward would usually match up one-on-one with opposing tight ends and that type of thing. I could see them doing that again with Jimmy Ward and Talon Hufanga being your starting 2, then Gibson coming off of the sideline being the single high safety and allowing basically Gibson and Talon Hufanga would play the same way that they're doing now, and you'd have Jimmy Ward playing down in the box, manning up against opposing tight ends and that kind of thing. So, and then with Jason Verrett, I think what you got with Verrett, I don't think we're going to see him all of a sudden slide in and start playing the nickel. I think he's still an outside corner. But you look at the 49ers' current cornerbacks, and Tarvarius Ward's been playing really well. Emmanuel Mosley's been playing really well. Both those guys have been at a high level, but they both have recent injury histories. So the likelihood of them playing 17 weeks of this season really isn't there. And so that's where Jason Verrett comes in. One of those 2 guys goes down for a week or 2. Now you bring Jason Verrett off of the bench, and we've seen how he can play. He was a game changer in 2020 for this team once he stepped into the starting lineup after Richard Sherman went down. So that's how I see this playing out with Ward and Verrett. I think the Ward comes back a little bit quicker. You can get him right into the starting spot, and then rotate, still get Gibson onto the field. He's a stud, so he's going to always be out there. And then Verrett is a guy that comes off the bench when needed to help spell injuries and those types of things. Have a caller, so I'm going to go ahead and take that one really quick. Just give me a second to change this over. I want to have the put that over there. Juwayo's in the chat. Let me go ahead and bring him in. Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good, Jack. How about yourself?
I'm good. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing that has surprised me the most has been the offensive line. And especially being that Banks, Burford, and really, if you wanted to say Brendel, sort of, they're rookies, as far as for this offense. And they've really stepped up. And I'm so happy that these guys are gelling. And I think they're going to get better with Jimmy. I think part of Jimmy, do you think it was kind of true that he said that he needs a little bit of time to not only to come back from his injury because he didn't even practice, but also getting the feel for the way Brendel hikes the ball and the guards, how they play? Do you think that has some validity?
Uh, there could be some of that to it. The hiking, the snap of the ball, um, that's always a little bit of an issue. If that's something that was slowing him down, say in Denver, then he should have been getting a lot more reps on the side, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but I'm with you on that. That could be part of it is, he didn't practice with the team throughout training camp, and he wasn't probably getting a ton of reps other than um, once he got in there for the first couple of weeks, first week of the season. So uh, I could see it being
yeah, and
a little bit of a rust and working it out. But at the same time, Jimmy Garoppolo's mistakes, what we saw of him, are mistakes that we've seen him make in the past. So that's the my only thing that gives me pause is that we've seen him make those mistakes in the past. Go ahead.
yeah. I mean, we know what Jimmy is, right? I mean, we have to just accept it, and let's go forward, right, and do the best we can, and hopefully he can not make those mistakes, play a clean game, and if he does that, then we can, with our defense, I think we can go a long way. We just want to get to the playoffs, and just hopefully he can stay healthy. Also, Jalen Moore, um, he's a guy that's going to start. I have faith in him. I just maybe the game was a little bit too much for him, or what do you think? His injury, or what do you think was holding him back a little bit?
Jalen Moore,
Yes.
yeah, he struggled a lot during training camp. Um, he had a rough training camp, and you saw that kind of carry over and he struggled in the preseason games as well. You saw that carry over into the Denver game. Uh, I think Moore is better suited to play more on the inside than he played than on the tackle. But if the 49ers, might be able to get around it if they give him a little bit of help, get Juszczyk and Kittle over to his side to maybe help him a little bit. Uh, that'll be able to kind of hide some of his weaknesses in the pass game specifically. In the run game, he's not the strongest of blockers either, but he's not he's okay.
The other thing that really surprised me is McGlinchey. He's played. I mean, I was really worried about him. I thought, excuse me, I thought that coming back from that major injury, which was a big injury, I thought I wasn't too sure how he was going to play, but he sucked it up and he's played very well. Do you think he's been a big surprise the way he's played?
That he played and not being necessarily all that good. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, I mean that coming back from the injury, I thought I was a little concerned
Oh,
going
gotcha.
into the season. I
Hmm.
thought, man, I don't know if he's going to be able to handle it. I know he's never been an all pro. We understand what McGlinchey is.
Sure.
He's kind of like lineman Jimmy, right? I mean, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
we know we know what he is. We know what we can do. If he runs, he's good. If he has to do a pass blocking against great rushers, he has his problems. But I mean, he's available,
Yeah.
and that's one of the biggest things. Because if McGlinchey couldn't do it, then man, what would we do? We'd have to throw probably Brunskill or somebody out there. And I've been really surprised. I've been happy, and I think we're going to get better in the offensive line. And I think that's going to be the key. I think that's going to be the key going forward because I'm not worried at all about the defense. I mean, I think they'll have hiccups against maybe like, the Chiefs, you know, maybe Tampa Bay a little bit, which are the teams that I think we have to look out for. But, we just got to win our division.
Yeah. Yeah. Win the division, get a home playoff game. That would be huge. I think McGlinchey's been okay. You know that he's going to give up some stuff in pass protection every once in a while.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you saw at least I
But,
caught it a couple of times on Monday night where they were helping him out with George Kittle or one of the other other players on the offense kind of helping him out so he didn't have to get out so wide on his pass protection based on the
yeah.
front that they're
Yeah.
showing him. But he's been okay. I'd rather have Mike McGlinchey on the field than any at right tackle than any of the other people that are on the 49ers.
Exactly. And the other thing that really has surprised me is just I think it surprised everybody. Unless I know you were there and you watched the practices and everything. But Hufanga has just been amazing to me how he has taken such a big step from last year to this year. Uh, it just seems like he must do a lot of film study because it was funny because on the presser they were asking him about Debo's touchdown. He said, "Oh, did Debo make a touchdown?" They said, "Yeah, didn't you see it?" He goes, "Oh no, I was on the sidelines looking at my adjustments," and that kind of gives me an insight into what kind of a player he is. That he didn't even know he's oblivious to Debo making a great play. That he's over there making adjustments. That makes a big difference to me in how a player is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's yeah, no. Talanoa Hufanga has been he's been so good to start this season off, and there were a lot of folks who didn't believe in that choice that he should be playing, being the starter in the secondary. There were a lot of them, and this is he made a ton of plays when he was at SC, Pac-12 Player of the Year as a senior. In his last year there, he just had a lot of injuries that he dealt with, and that's what's held him back. And that's the only thing that gives me concern is that he has a history of injuries. And but right now he's playing at a very high level. He's an instinctual player. He's very smart. So it's not necessarily instincts, but it's from film work is giving him what looks to be instincts. So I think that the Hufanga has just been for where they got him in the draft and everything that he's doing. Man, this defense has taken a step forward with him on the back end. That's for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, those are some of my thoughts right now. And I think Carolina, I think we just gotta beware of them because they have a pretty good defense. You know, they've been in the games that they played, they just kind of wore down like in the fourth quarters, some of the what I was seeing of them. But they got some players, plus, we can't take nothing for granted, and hopefully we can go over there and get a win. And I guess they're gonna stay over there and then go to Atlanta. Is that the plan?
Yeah, yeah. So they'll play on Sunday in Carolina, then they'll fly up to West Virginia to the Greenbrier up there where they usually been when they play on the East Coast. They'll hang out there and then they'll come back down to Atlanta for the game on Sunday against the Falcons before they head back home.
Okay, well that's all the time that I was gonna let you go, and thank you very much for your time, and I really appreciate. I always read your columns, and I appreciate all the hard work that you do for the faithful. And you have yourself a great night, and stay blessed.
You too. Thank you so much. I see you in the chat all the time, and you're always so gracious with the super chat. So it's great to get a chance to talk to you when we do this.
All right, then you have a good evening.
All
Bye
right, you
bye.
too. Bye bye. All right, that was a great call, and as Andrew said, smart caller, true fan. Absolutely, that is exactly how I would characterize Jay. He's a very smart guy. A lot of fun to talk to him all the time. My type of guy. He's not crazy. Uh, in terms of over, it's always being a fan. I understand that there's going to be times when you're very emotional, but I enjoy having those conversations that are a little more down to earth. Uh, so that's what that call was, and that was a really good one. Uh, Real quick, I want to get back to there was I was talking about the whole George Kittle topic. So let me go back to this one really quick. This probably came in from Niners Warriors while I was talking about that. He says, "Hey Jack, do you buy Jimmy G's explanation today about Kittle or our offensive stars not getting the ball each week? Do you think Walsh would let Rice go a game without getting him the ball?" Okay, so a couple of things on this one. The answer to answer your second question, would Walsh let Rice go for a game without getting the ball? The answer to that is absolutely not. Bill Walsh always made sure that he had something in his script in those first 15 plays that was going to put the ball in Jerry Rice's hands. He wanted to get him into the game as soon as possible and let him kind of feel it. And so to start that off, that's a no to that part of your question. To the other part, do I buy Jimmy G's explanation about Kittle, where the offensive star is not getting the ball each week? To an extent, but you've got to who's not getting the ball each week? The 49ers' best offensive player is Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is the 49ers' best offensive player. And he's gotten the ball in his hands early every game so far this season. They put the ball in his hands early. Now, they got him the ball quick against Chicago on that first possession. I think he might have had the ball on first down, or if it wasn't the first play of the game, it was for sure the second. So he got a few got the ball in his hands pretty quick. I think he actually caught the first pass from Trey Lance this season on the little jet sweep, where basically it was just a forward shovel pass to him around the right side. So they're getting the ball to their stars early, meaning, now in terms of the George Kittle piece, well, George Kittle isn't Jerry Rice. George Kittle isn't close to that level. George Kittle isn't a guy that you're focusing on saying, I need to get this guy the ball. I absolutely have to get George Kittle the ball in order for him to help our team succeed. He's different. George Kittle can affect the game by helping out your offensive line pass protect. He can help out by getting out and leading on in the run game. He can get help by leading out and getting outside on your screens. He can help in a lot of different ways in terms of George Kittle. So he's a different player. He's not a Jerry Rice type player. And then, in terms of not getting, the amount of times these guys are getting the ball, again, I go through, just for example, I know Monday's just a big deal. And I'm saying, he was on the field for 16 passes and he got more targets than any other 49er on those 16. So I'm not sure about that. And George Kittle's going to get his, but George Kittle isn't your primary guy. George Kittle is a secondary piece to this thing. He gets paid like a top tight end, but that's because of all the different things that he does to help you win games, not just the receiving portion of it. He's a very good blocker, and he's also good with the ball in his hands. We saw him make a really nice reception on about a 20-yard gain early on in the second half. Now, that's the other piece too. As we're talking about this, let me just share one last piece of George Kittle's game from Monday with you. George Kittle spent more time in the first half in the blocking realm than he did in the second half. It was, I think, 7 of those 10 plays that he was kept in to help block on either pass or screens. Those were in the first half. The second half, that was reduced to 3. In the second half, that's when George Kittle got all 4 of his targets. He got all 4 of those in the second half of that game. Should have had a touchdown if he would have been able to keep both hands and both of his feet in bounds. So I'm not buying into the George Kittle is washed talk. I'm not buying into the George Kittle is underutilized talk. The 49ers offense needs to improve. The reason they're not improving in the second half, or they're not playing better in the second half, is it's a lack of execution, either by the quarterback or somebody else on the offense. They've been in a lot of positions, and that does fall back on the coach. It falls back on the coordinator, because it's your job to get those guys ready to go. But it's not a play calling issue. It's a team discipline issue, and also it's an issue with the quarterback being able to make plays at times. So that's hope that answers your question, Niners. That's a really good question, and I appreciate you asking that. Debuta asks, have you thought about or have asked Kyle questions that will alter his play calling or personnel? I'm sure you would have some suggestions or observations that would help our team. Well, that question was asked to him, and basically what he said was, we just need to coach through it. And I agree with him. Again, you go into, you look at the week 1 matchup, and they should have scored a touchdown to open that second half. After that, they didn't have the ball all that much. They couldn't stay on the field. Quarterback struggled a little bit more. I think the Bears did a much better job than the 49ers of adjusting in the second half. But the 49ers still should have scored a touchdown on that first possession, and which would have put them up by 14 instead of 10. Would have changed that game around a little bit more, I think. They were fine against Seattle. Against Denver, I think that was a case of the quarterback just not hitting throws that were there. wide open stuff that was just being missed. A couple of bad play calls on his part. The one on second down, backed up to the 2 that resulted in a safety. That was a rough call from Kyle Shanahan. But for the most part, I'm not super negative on Kyle Shanahan. I think that the way that this team is built and the way we're going to see them succeed is they need to do better early in the game, and they need to take advantage of the first half when they have those opportunities to put teams away. Because they had opportunities to have that thing be a blowout at halftime in Chicago. They had opportunities for it to be a blowout in Denver, and just couldn't do it. So I think there's a lot to it in terms of adjusting play calling or personnel. I don't like saying this, but because it feels like a cop out in a way, but it's a I think on offense it's more of a right now it's been more of a execution issue, and Shanahan has to do a better job of getting his players to execute. I don't think it's a play calling thing or a personnel thing. It's just getting them to execute better. And he's limited by his quarterback. Let's just be honest. Spy Nick Danger wants to ask, hi Jack, is this the game our offense gets back on track, or will this be another close game because of the Panthers defense? I think this is going to be a game that it has the potential to be a really close game for the 49ers because of how good the Carolina defense is. If it's not, what I think you're going to see is the 49ers defense is, if they dominate this game, the offense might be able to put up more points just because it's a short field, or there might even be some touchdowns that are scored by the defense. So I think the defense is going to help the offense kind of get on track here, but I wouldn't. I would say more than likely, like with this one, it's going to be. I just feel this is going to be a close game. I would not be surprised to see a lot of hand wringing about this 49ers offense after this game, because if they don't get some turnovers to give them really good field position, I think they're going to have trouble scoring points. Like pretty much everybody's had trouble with this Carolina defense so far this season. You got Danny says that he played baseball at Sierra College, where Ayuk played football. He's from Rockland. The player I really want to see get the ball and see what he can do. He's always open. I agree. Brandon Ayuk is a stud, and I think Sierra College, that's Rockland, right? Isn't that where the 49ers used to have training camp, was in Rockland? Yeah, no, they did, but wasn't it at Sierra College when they're up in Rockland there? Pretty sure it was. But yeah, no, when it comes to Brandon Ayuk, he's been open. They're not able to utilize. Again, this goes back to the quarterback. Brandon Ayuk, his best attribute is to get down the field. He's going to be good with this. He's good. He's okay with the ball in his hands. He's not anywhere close to Deebo Samuel, but most guys aren't. But he's a good down the field receiver, and right now the Flyers just don't have a quarterback that can get him the ball down the field. I thought you were going to see him really take a step up this year with Trey Lance being the quarterback. Unfortunately, Lance got injured, so it might take another year. We'll see how this thing plays out for him. James says, quit it with Kittle. This team's first play is to run. Their second is to extend the run game and throw it short to Deebo. After that, it's a slant Ayuk. Kittle is a fourth in the pecking order. Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that at all. And I'm not even. Hopefully, James, from me, from what I'm saying, you might be responding to somebody else in the comment section. Hopefully, though, that for me, I don't get the whole Kittle infatuation that we're seeing with the lack of targets going his way, especially when you actually take time to look at the game and watch what he's doing on each and every play. But that's the problem, is that most people don't do that. They just look at a stat and they hear a few people that are complaining about it, and it just starts to build from there. KW2421 is one of Lance's main flaws that he wants to be the one that makes the great play instead of let his receivers do it. I think that's why he holds it too long. No, I don't think that's a flaw. I think the reason that he holds it too long is that his release is a little slow, and also on top of that, I don't know if he's really seen the field necessarily the way that you would want him to see it to get the ball out of his hand that quick. Plus, they typically try to go down the field a little bit more with him. You're going to hold the ball a little bit longer there too, but he's just a little bit slow getting the ball out of his hands, and I just don't think he's fully seen the field the way that Kyle Shanahan wants him to see the field. That's going to get there. So that's where him missing all this time that he's missing now because of injury is a shame. Bob Callie says that he went to Santa Rosa Junior College in the early 70s, some great Niner games back then. Absolutely. I started with the 49ers in 1980, so I go back a little ways. Yeah, so that's it. In terms of this week, 49ers are going to have a tough game, I think, out in Carolina. We'll get into that a little bit more tomorrow. I'll be on with in the afternoon with my good pal Rob Shu over on his channel for the Hammerhead Show. So check us out. We'll get into a pregame kind of look. I'll have a little bit more information on my channel over the next couple of days as well in terms of getting ready for this game. I will definitely be on Sunday with a little quick pregame show, and then we'll have the postgame show as well after the game. So I just want to say thank you. We had about 35 people in here for most of the show. Had a pretty good group over there in the comment section as well. You guys had a lot of great questions. We look to kind of try to do this every Thursday moving forward if we can. Let your friends know. Share it with all your other 49ers buddies. I know there's games going on Thursday night, but who cares about those? 49ers is what you guys are, your 49ers fans. So you can jump in here, type in your question. You could always hit me up on Twitter beforehand and let me know what your questions are, and I can answer those as well. So I just want to say thanks to everybody that took the time to join. Before you leave, if you can just do me a favor really quick and hit that like button for me, and then also hit the subscribe button. When you hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell notification so you know when we're live. And then last but not least, get yourselves over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. You get all the latest stuff on the 49ers over there. Didn't get an article up today. Was too busy with some other things today. But there'll definitely be something going up tomorrow. And then we've got a couple of things going on over the weekend. On Sunday, you've got the live blog, and you've got the post-game write-up and everything else like that. So it's busy. So check it out. Make it a favorite on your web browser, 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. Like and subscribe before you leave. Thanks to everybody for taking the time to check this out tonight. Have a great rest of your Thursday or whatever day you're watching this. Appreciate you. Take care. Talk to you soon.